Today we have the latest NHL trade talk focusing on teams like the Montreal Canadiens, the Chicago Blackhawks, as well as the New York Islanders. Plus, we also have a significant update on Jack Eichel and when he may return. We also have news from the NHL waiver wire, some injury updates, and some sad news. Another hockey legend has unfortunately passed away. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to talk about here today. But I'd like to open the video first by acknowledging the passing of Islanders legend Clark Gillies, who unfortunately passed away at the young age of 67. Kind of got everybody off guard, unexpected. Nobody really seen it coming. I know it was documented. He did have a battle with prostate cancer a while back, but we really don't know the exact cause of death, and I'm not going to speculate in anything like that, but because we really don't know, and at some point it may become public and we'll go from there. But ultimately that doesn't really matter. The fact is he's no longer with us. He left at a young age. He was an absolute legend in the hockey world, especially in Long Island, where he was such a huge part of that Islanders dynasty that won 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. He was your ultimate power forward, really tough as nails, had skill, put up some good points, and was just an absolute Islander legend. A huge part of the Islanders alumni and Islanders community. Often seen him at games as well. Really beloved by his teammates. One of those guys you hated to play against on the ice, but he was known as a gentle giant or a gentleman, really big time teddy bear off the ice as well. Really well respected and liked not only by his teammates, but anybody who's coming to contact or cross paths with Gillies here over the time. Of course, one thing about Clark Gillies a lot of people may not know was one of his teammates and best buddies, Bob Bourne. They both actually basically knew each other even before their Islander days. Both grew up in Saskatchewan, and they both actually were able to play professional baseball. They didn't get to the major leagues, but they were minor league ball players before they were professional hockey players, and they both played one season in the Houston Astros organization at the minor league level. I'm not sure what level exactly it was, but one of their minor league affiliates. And then from there, they gave it up and decided to focus on hockey and made it with the Islanders. Of course, Gillies was drafted by the Islanders. Bourne wasn't, but was later traded there. And then, of course, to get their big break and get their careers going. But Gillies and Bourne were especially close, and one thing that a lot of people may not realize as well, connection here as well, a lot of you, especially in Canada, would know Justin Bourne from Sportsnet. That's actually Bob Bourne's son, which is Clark Gillies' son-in-law. So obviously Clark Gillies' daughter married Bob Bourne's son, so not only were the two close, but they became in-laws and became grandparents together. Very, very close families. Big loss in the Islanders community, and we certainly just want to acknowledge the passing and certainly pass along our condolences to his vast amount of family and friends and anybody who's known him. Nothing but great things. That everybody's kind of in mourning and in shock here as the Islanders legend, gone way too soon. So certainly rest in peace, Clark Gillies. Now on to the rest of the NHL news today. When it comes to some injury updates, we had the Winnipeg Jets finally were able to activate longtime captain Blake Wheeler, who was on LTIR for an extended period of time, but unfortunately he goes off and Nick Ehlers goes on. So when you're on LTIR, you're basically on it for about a month or more. So that means Ehlers won't be back anytime soon. So nice to get a guy back, but when you lose another top player at the same time, certainly doesn't make things any easier. The Jets are certainly having a tough time lately, and hard to say if they're going to be able to get this season on track and get into the playoffs. They don't have an easy task in front of them based on the standings here. Quick update from the waiver wire. Kyle Turris, who was on waivers yesterday, did indeed clear. No claims were put in for the longtime NHL center, so he will be able to be assigned to the Oilers taxi squad for now. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, clearly, I think the Oilers are trying to either get somebody to take the contract or clear some cap space because it looks like they are close to signing Evander Kane. So here's your latest Evander Kane update. According to Dave Pagnotta of thefourthperiod.com, essentially there's 3 teams in the mix still, with the Oilers kind of considered to be the favorites right now. We believe the other 2 teams are, one of them at least was Florida. I know Tampa was in there but appeared to be out. I'm not sure exactly who the third team is besides the Oilers and the Panthers. Really, I don't think it's going to matter too much because it sounds pretty much like a done deal with the Oilers, but we'll see. Apparently, Evander, Kane and his camp are expecting the NHL's report or decision on those allegations and the investigation that he's under right now for violating COVID protocols to be concluded, and a decision to come first of the week, so Monday, if not Tuesday at the latest, and they are feeling confident that there won't be a suspension. So that's what they're saying. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the case. We'll see where this goes, but teams in the Kane camp are certainly on the same page that it makes sense to wait for a decision, because if there is a suspension, that will certainly impact whether or not they might change their mind. If he's going to be out, if it's just a few games or something like that, maybe not a big deal, but where he already has had a 20-game suspension this year for, other types of things, you'd have to think if they do suspend him again, it's going to be longer, right? And that's a big chunk of the games that are remaining. So that could impact ultimately their decisions. But we should have a Kane decision and a signing if he's able to get one, or a decision if he's going to be suspended first of the week. So that's not too far away. Now, we also have some Jack Eichel news. Now, it's funny, actually, because in yesterday's video, I seen a comment that was actually saying that they missed the days when all the videos were about Jack Eichel, which I know was probably made maybe somewhat, in seriousness and somewhat in fun. There was a point when Eichel was the hot topic, and it might have felt something that we talked about him every day. Like, there were times where I was tired of it too, but like I said, I report on the NHL news, and I want to talk about what's being talked about. Like, that's what I want to do, is I want to offer my thoughts, my opinions on the latest news, the latest rumors. I tell you what I think. I want you to tell me what you think in the comments. Creates a community, to place we can all talk about it and share opinions, right? That's the whole nature of it. But I know Eichel was, it drug on for so long, which was out of all of our control. But ultimately, we do have some actual news. We know that he had a surgery. We know he's been going through rehab, and he finally joined the team. Things were on par to join the team in Vegas. But it looks like, according to head coach Peter DeBoer, he's still quite a ways away. According to recent comments here this last couple of days from DeBoer, it sounds like Eichel could be as much as still 2 months away from returning. So it's gotten some people talking about the whole LTIR thing. Are they going the route of Tampa? I mean, 2 months is not the end of the season, but 2 months puts us to the NHL trade deadline. Obviously puts us until late March, but certainly the NHL season is going to, go on into April before we're done here. So certainly, I don't know what they're going to do, but it created some people talking, a bit of a stir. The fact is, the injury update, he's not going to be playing anytime soon. I know we've had other players in Vegas go in and out of LTIR. We've talked about what Vegas is going to do when it's time to activate Eichel, because they need to clear space, and it's going to be a significant contract. And obviously, we know last year with the Kucherov situation in Tampa and the fact that he was magically ready to go for game 1 of the playoffs, you can say what you want, and there's various opinions out there whether or not he could have returned sooner or not. And I don't really know what was what, but it does look suspicious. I understand why people would be up in arms. I understand why there would be a fuss made about it, because, it doesn't look good when suddenly you're out all year, but, they won the playoffs. Yeah, I'm good. Activate me, right? So certainly in the playoffs, there's no salary cap. So it's completely different monster at that point. So if Eichel didn't return until the playoffs, Vegas would not have to worry about activating him and shedding a bunch of salary. So doesn't mean that there's anything fishy going on here. Certainly the league has the ability to check things out and obviously, intervene if necessary, but we've never seen it happen, so it's hard to say, right? But still, Eichel is a couple months away. Some people automatically were up in arms talking about, the whole Kucherov, Tampa Bay solution, leave him on LTIR to the end of the year. We talked about all these things, so we'll see where this goes, but at the end of the day, we're going to have to wait a while to see the Eichel debut in Vegas, regardless of what's up and what's not, and we'll see what happens, but makes you wonder if they might have that in the back of their minds here as to what they might be doing for a strategy going into the playoffs. Now, as I mentioned, we have some NHL trade rumors for today. I do want to take a look at one involving the New York Islanders, of course, who are playing tonight against the Maple Leafs. Of course, I'm sure there are going to be a lot of them having Gillies on on their minds. Hopefully they have a good game. But of course, the Islanders are not having a fantastic year, although I must say they have been playing better more recently, have had more wins under their belt, and things have been looking up. But, it's still a long ways to go from getting their season on track, and you could argue that they're so far behind in the standings that, coming back all the way to get into the playoffs might be a bit of a pipe dream. So it's hard to say what's going to happen with them, but at least we can say they've been playing better more recently. Doesn't stop the trade rumors from coming up, though, and Dan Rosen is reporting that they are exploring trading Josh Bailey. Now, this isn't something new. We had reported in the offseason there was a lot of talk and rumors about Bailey being on the block around the time before expansion draft. We know that he was exposed in the expansion draft, so they were certainly okay losing him. Kraken took Eberle over Bailey, but both were available there. There was even some talk about him early in the season because Bailey himself hasn't had the greatest season. He's had his moments recently where he's looked like he was back and he was good, but certainly not consistent this year, and his overall production definitely down a little bit. And he still has 2 more years on his deal of $5 million too, so not the easiest contract, but according to the reports from Dan Rosen, they are exploring that, and there is reported interest apparently from the Calgary Flames. Now, the Flames, not a huge shock, had been rumored to be probably adding a forward if it's looking like they're going to make the playoffs. They're certainly not done in the Flames organization, but at this point, it's a little bit premature to go out and add, but at least in my opinion, depending on what the price is going to be, but they are certainly trending like they could very well be a playoff team, but it's not secured by any means right now. Of course, they've got a big game tonight against the Oilers in the Battle of Alberta, which should be very interesting, especially considering the skid the Oilers have been on recently. But the Flames' interest in Bailey, to me, I find a little bit confusing. I'm not sure what kind of return it would be. They'd probably try to pawn off Sean Monahan to the Islanders would be my guess, and that's certainly not what the Islanders need. They need to pick up the pace when it comes to scoring more goals. Bailey with a fresh start with some different players, maybe he can get going offensively, but to acquire a guy with 2 more years at $5 million seems a little suspect to me, although Lou has pulled off other magical wonders cap-wise before. Could he find a trade for Bailey? It's not entirely impossible. I would just have some not sure that the Flames are really where he's really should end up, but you know what? If the Flames are interested, we'll see. Time will tell here. I wouldn't be surprised to see them add a guy. Just not sure he's the right fit, but we'll see where that rumor goes here. Of course, when it comes to the Habs, we've seen some various reports that from a combination of TVA Sports. I've seen an article from Eric Duhanchik in The Athletic as well, talking about some of the names that could be mentioned by the Habs. We know Ken Hughes has already made it publicly known in interviews that he and Jeff Gorton are already well into trade talk, and a lot of conversations are already underway. Gorton was already having conversations with some other teams before he was even hired, so they're certainly well into their beginning here to kind of analyze this team and decide who stays and who goes. There's a lot of players in Montreal that we've already talked about with expiring contracts that make sense to be moved. We've talked about the fact that Arturi Lekkonen's gaining interest. You look on the blue line, like Ben Sherratt, Chris Weidman could have interest. So certainly possibilities there. If anybody wants to pick up Cedric Paquette, that's certainly not a big deal. I'm sure they'd make him available. But a couple other names besides the ones that we've talked about before that are certainly apparently getting interest is Jonathan Drouin and Tyler Toffoli. Now, Toffoli to me is not a given that they trade him. They might decide to hang on to him, given how good he was last year especially, and he has a very favorable contract, lots of experience. They need a few vets around to help with this rebuild. Might make sense for him to be one of them if he's not wanting a trade. Drouin, on the other hand, we've said for a long time, could probably benefit from a fresh start and get out of the hockey hotbed, which is apparently been tough on him. There's no doubt. It can be a tough place to play, and it's certainly taken its toll on him. I think that's fair to say. So, maybe playing in a market that's a little bit less out of the spotlight might be better for him. But apparently he is gaining interest. We don't know what teams are inquiring here, but of course, Drouin, not the greatest contract either when it comes to moving him. Toffoli, on the other hand, I think will be definitely getting interest. And they're basically the report from Eric Duhanchik saying that they very well could move Toffoli, mainly because of the level of interest. They might get a good offer that they just can't refuse as much as they're open to keeping him. I think they're also open to trading them. It's really hard to say. Like, they're bound to keep a few guys around, like your young core guys like Caulfield, Suzuki. They're not going anywhere. So, of course, on the blue line, you get Romanov, youngster Caden Gooley. not going to be made available by any means. But, after that, it's kind of debatable, right? I mean, you're going to have a few guys stick around. Maybe it's Gallagher and Anderson stay, and the rest of the vets could possibly be moved. Hard to say, but not everybody's going to want to take every contract either. Not going to be easy there, but certainly a name like Jerard is one that we haven't really heard much about until today. So the fact that there is interest could very well lead to an additional trade there too. Interesting to see where the Habs go with this as we approach the NHL trade deadline and see just what kind of mark Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton plan to leave on this team. Now, the Chicago Blackhawks are apparently wide open for business as well. We've seen this report from a variety of places, but the article today I was looking at comes again from the fourthperiod.com and Dave Pagnotta, talking about there's really only a handful of guys there that are considered untouchable, and that's Taves and Kane for starters. They have full control over their destination, and of course there's no indication right now that either want to leave Chicago, but apparently there's some that believe that will be a conversation once we have a full-time GM in Chicago, whether it be Kyle Davidson or somebody different. They'll be having those conversations in the offseason, and if a deal like that were to go down, maybe that would be the time to make it happen. They'll both be entering the final year of their contracts, so it'll certainly be more interesting at that time. So I wouldn't rule out a potential move with either of them then, but not just yet. Of course, Seth Jones just signed a mega contract. He's not going anywhere. Certainly that would be a tough contract to trade given how much money is involved anyhow, and considering that what they just gave him, it makes sense but he stay. Now, we've heard some other reports about the Hawks and their untouchables, and those three were the only names mentioned, and the fact that Alex DeBrincat wasn't included kind of set a lot of people off, wondering why would they consider that? But according to the fourthperiod.com, DeBrincat and Kirby Dach are pretty much untouchable as well, and it would only be considered if they got a deal that would absolutely knock their socks off. And I think you could say that as just about any player, really. But if a team wanted to offer up a wicked package for DeBrincat that they couldn't say no to, that will really help with the rebuild, I think they would consider it. But I'm not sure, as much as he's a great player, putting up big numbers, and a lot of teams would probably love to have him, it's really debatable if you'd see anything like that happen. But, unless the team's going to throw a ridiculous offer, you might as well say that there's really 5 players there that are untouchable. But as far as the key guys that are likely going to get moved, you're looking at guys like Dylan Strome. Dominic Kubalik apparently has been made available as well. Connor Murphy, Eric Gustafson, and of course, Marc-Andre Fleury is made available too, but he will have control over that. But according to this article, Davidson and the Hawks have made it known that outside of a few players, they are basically wide open for business. They enter much more of a strong rebuild. Of course, to understand Bowman, we really didn't see that. We see them constantly be retooling and resetting, but not really tearing it down and going for a fresh start here at all. When it comes to Marc-Andre Fleury, I know in the latest 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick were talking about potential destinations for him, and they kind of concluded that one they thought he would probably end up in would be the Colorado Avalanche. Now, it wouldn't be a shocker, given the fact of what their goaltending situation is like, that might be the one area that they really focus on adding on before the trade deadline to really bolster themselves. I mean, the Avalanche right now, they appear to be the cream of the crop in the Western Conference. I think they see themselves having a better path to the Stanley Cup than they've had in past years. And to have that all-star goaltender like Fleury, who's done so much in the playoffs before, on their roster would make a huge difference. Now, of course, depending on what else they can do under the salary cap, it wouldn't be surprising to see them add a little bit of extra depth in the forward or defense group either. I don't think they're going to be completely done, but it's going to be hard to say what they do. But with Fleury, he's making $7 million. If the Hawks want to retain 50% and they can get him for 3.5, that's not too bad. And of course, they'd have to send something Chicago's way. Hard to say what that would be, but I won't be surprised if you see Sakic and the Avalanche make a all-in kind of go for it kind of move like that and acquire Fleury and whatever else they can to really go for it. Of course, right now, Vegas doesn't look to be the real, threat like they haven't in the past, but still, if Eichel stays out on LTIR and they don't have to clear salary and they can maybe even add more, depending on what other injuries they have, and then suddenly get everybody back for the playoffs like Tampa did, they could be in a situation where they are a powerhouse in the playoffs, but it might be tricky given the fact that Eichel hasn't played all year, wouldn't really have that developed chemistry, and it's just hard to say how that would work out, but it's certainly going to be very, very, very interesting. But again, there are teams here that are kind of ready to roll. Montreal and Chicago pretty much have, like I said, made it known that they're open for business. The deals are going to start coming. We're probably bound to see a few before the All-Star break. I mean, that's another thing that American Freeman we're talking about, that there's a lot of GMs were saying that before they have the break. Now, of course, the break's not going to be as long as it was going to be. There was expecting a bunch of trades before the Olympic break, but now that that break is shrunken down to just a few days for the All-Star game, we may not see as much, if anything, until after. It's hard to say. There's not quite as much pressure to get something done with such a long, extended break. But let me know your thoughts on what we discussed here today. Down in the comments, we'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.